Ladies and gentlemen, please give a huge round of applause to Jeane Freeman.
I'm going to have to stand still here because my battery just fell out. You know how it feels sometimes, eh? Especially on a Sunday. Can I thank the organisers for inviting me here? It's a bit special, actually, because I think about 2 years ago, round about now, maybe a wee bit earlier, we had the very first organising meeting of Women for Independence in this institute in the hall next door. Look how far we've come. What I want to do is tell you a wee bit about why I support independence, because I haven't always done so. I was born and raised in Ayr, the child of a family that was a strong trade union and Labour Party supporting family. My mum and dad believed in that firmly, probably my dad a wee bit more than my mum, to be honest. And my dad was a strong trade unionist because he believed that people coming together in work to support each other, argue for each other, benefit each other was the right way to do it. And he also believed that the Labour Party was the political party that could represent that movement in Parliament. So when we were growing up, myself and my two brothers, we grew up with two really strong messages from my mum and dad. The first one was that we had a responsibility as we moved into adulthood to make the best of the opportunities that were made to us, were made available to us, to take responsibility, to work hard, and to create a better life for our families. Because our parents, like parents in this room, had as one of their main objectives to build a better life for their kids than they themselves had had. And they expected that their kids would do the same. But the second message was equally important, and it was this, that no matter how well any one of us did, no matter how well we got on in the world, what job we got, whether we got a degree or not, whether we had a happy life, our life would never be as rich as it could be if the people around us didn't have those opportunities too. So richness comes not to us as individuals. Richness comes to our lives by all those around us. And I was lucky. I left school, I trained as a nurse, and I went on and did a degree. And eventually that degree took me to a privileged place indeed. And that was to be a senior political advisor to one of the first Scottish governments. I was Jack McConnell's senior political advisor. I carried that belief in the Labour Party, in working together, and looking out for each other all the way through. And it was that experience in government that made me begin to think that perhaps independence was an option worth considering. Because as I grew up, it wasn't that our family was opposed to independence. It didn't feature in the debate and the discussion at all. But I saw in the Scottish Government what we can do when we have the powers to make decisions that fit best with what people in Scotland want. I saw that when those decisions go with the grain of people in Scotland, we can go down a different road from the road that Westminster wants to take us on. So the first argument for independence for me is about democracy. It is a democratic argument. Somebody said earlier that since the end of the Second World War, only 3 times have we had a Westminster government that represented what the majority of people in Scotland wanted. I've been able to vote in UK general elections for 40 years. It's not because we are peeved that we don't get the government that we collectively vote for. It's not because we're in the huff that we didn't get our own way. It matters because it affects every single one of our lives every day. We can have in Scotland decisions made about education, about school education, about nursery care, about childcare, that go with the grain of what we want, made by our Scottish Government in that Parliament over there in Edinburgh. But we can have the best resourced school education, the most talented teachers, the largest number of teachers, the smallest classroom sizes. But if one child goes to that school hungry because their parents, albeit in work, cannot afford to feed them and the food bank has run out of food, that child will not make the best of the opportunity that's available to them. If one child goes to that school upset because mum and dad are arguing, because granny lives in a house with one bedroom too many, according to Westminster, a house that she's lived in all her life and brought her family up in all her life, that child will not get the best of that education system. So those decisions at Westminster, made by a government we did not vote for, matter. They affect our lives. We have the capacity in Scotland to make our own decisions. We've shown that we have since 1999 at the very least. People tell us that it will be all too difficult and all too complicated. Do you know, if we work with a budget that has all those few 60p's still owed to us, and we can hold a National Health Service in Scotland that is true to its founding principles, while south of the border they sell it off to Virgin Health, then we can manage an economic policy and industrial strategy. People have said it before today, and you know it to be true. We are a rich country. We have one of the most educated populations in Western Europe. We're rich in natural resources. We're rich in entrepreneurs, in science, in life sciences, in food and drink, in tourism, in creative industries. But we're also rich in the energy and the talent and the abilities of our people. Imagine that harnessed collectively for our greater good, and tell me that we're too poor to manage. But we're also part of a country that is the fourth most unequal in Europe. Part of a country which has the largest wage gap in Europe between the earnings of men and women, which has higher childcare and transport costs, whose pensioners are the poorest in Europe, where child poverty is rising. So here we are in this talented, prosperous, energetic, able country, living in that kind of society. None of us in this room have the moral responsibility to turn away from that challenge. We need to fix that, and we need to fix it now. So what stands in our way? We're told that we can't do it. Since 1999, if not before, we've shown that we can. We can make the right decisions. They're not perfect, but we can make the right decisions in education, in health, in transport, in justice, in environment, and in those wee bits of the economy that we're allowed to play with. We can make the right decisions, so we most definitely can. We're told we're too wee. We are not too small to do this. We are actually perfectly formed. And we're told that we're too poor. Just one example. Norway has an oil fund of over £450 billion, and they created that in 20 years. So let's not have this daft argument that we'll only have oil for 20 years or 30 years or 40 years. Fine by me. Let's create that oil fund and invest in our future and our children's future right now. So, what really stands in our way? What really stands in our way? What stands in our way is the challenge that we collectively present to those with power. That stands in our way. People who have power who don't want to give it up. And they will do anything and everything to stop us getting that power. Because this isn't about voting yes and lifting the Westminster system and dropping it down in Scotland. No. This is about a different kind of politics. This is about a different kind of way of thinking about our economy, our industrial strategy, our welfare system, our health system. This is about a different Scotland, and we have it amongst us and outside these walls. We have it in our power and in our heads to be able to create that. The challenge that represents is what stands in our way, and it is time we recognise that for what it is. In this constituency, Ian Davidson represents people here. Ian Davidson, a Labour MP. That'll be Ian Davidson, one of the Labour MPs, urging Ed Miliband to take a firmer stance on migration and immigration. Really? That represents us? I am the grandchild of one of those great migrations. We as a people send ourselves across the world. We expect to be welcomed for our abilities and our talents. We should be a nation that welcomes others to our shores. So we are told that independence is risky. Let's have a look at what the real risks are. If we don't vote for independence, then we are going to get a Westminster government that's either Tory, Lib Dem, UKIP, any combination thereof, or Labour, and any combination thereof. My dad will burl in his grave at this point, but he would be burling if he was here, when I say that what Labour means is austerity stays, the economic strategy of the current government stays, welfare cuts and welfare caps stay, and the Barnett formula, that formula that says we get 60p less back than we put in, that formula is calculated on the basis of what the UK government spends on its public services. I'll tell you, if you're privatising health and you're going to cut back on education, the percentage that comes back to us will be even less than we get just now. Pocket money to play with. That won't do, but that's where we will be if we vote no. That's the risk. There is no risk in independence, except if we question our own capacity to do it. The risk is the status quo. The risk is waiting to see what we're given. The risk is waiting to be saved. Nobody's going to save us. We need to do it for ourselves. So there's a democratic argument. There's an argument that says we have the capacity to do it. There is an argument that says this is a golden opportunity. Voting yes on September the 18th is about choice. It's not about hating anyone. It's not about party loyalties. Keir Hardie had in his manifesto, number one at the top of that, home rule. Political parties are what we bring into being in order to represent what we believe. And when those parties stop doing that, we owe no loyalty to them. We owe loyalty to our neighbours, our communities, our families, our children, and the generations to come. So let's choose to say that we will take our future in our own hands. Independence is about, on the 18th of September, not handing that sovereignty back. Independence is about trust. If people ask me, Jeane, who is it you trust? I trust all of you. I trust us. So on September the 18th, let's choose ourselves. Let's choose to build our country anew. Thank you.